Hello, this is Chip McGee, Superintendent of Schools here in Pelham, and this is our next edition of Pelham School District Today. I'm delighted today with our guest. It's Holly Doe, who is our Director of Technology, and our topic today is broadly cybersecurity, but I freely admit that I just use that term really broadly, and I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about things that we do in the district to protect all that data that we end up having. But before we do that, could you just introduce yourself? And I think it's kind of fun to tell people your story of how you started here in Pelham, because I like that.
Sure. So yes, I'm the Director of Technology, and I have a small staff of about 6 people here, who all have a little bit of a role to play in cybersecurity and data privacy. I actually started out in the Pelham School District as a teacher in the classroom,
Yes.
A unified arts teacher at Pelham Elementary School, teaching STEM, and it was called enrichment. And a lot of kids will pass me in the halls and they know me as, the teacher with the Legos. So that's how I started. I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then I moved into a role as a technology integrator, working with teachers in the classroom. I worked at the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school. And then naturally just moved into the role of Director of Technology. And
It's funny you say that naturally. That is a big
maybe not
step.
naturally, but yeah.
Well, just because really you moved from knowing all the instructional stuff, excuse me, and we added all of the back-end systems to your set of responsibilities. And it's those that I thought we'd focus on today. So first off, I'm going to start with staff. We have, because we're a large employer here in Pelham, we have a lot of sensitive information about the people who work for the Pelham School District. We have in a database my social security number. And that's just how it works nowadays, but there's also bad actors out there who want to take advantage of that. And so could you talk to me a little bit about what we do to protect employee data?
Sure. So the first thing we make sure is that any product we're using, like our database products, that we keep that information and that we have agreements with those vendors so that they understand the New Hampshire laws, which are New Hampshire laws are some of the toughest laws in the United States around data and privacy and cybersecurity.
And that means, excuse me, strictest protecting individual privacy rights.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we make sure that those vendors understand those, and that, and then there's a lot of things we do internally, everything from firewalls to policies we set up, without getting too technical or revealing probably too much. We take a lot of different tactics to protect the privacy of our staff.
Yeah.
One of the things, we have settings within Google because Google's our provider for email and we use a lot of documents in Google. So there's policies in Google that you can set up to make sure that information doesn't leak out of the district and that it stays right where it needs to be.
Yeah, so I have had the experience where a email I'm sending gets quarantined because there was something in it that looked like something that shouldn't have been shared.
Correct.
And so what happens then? It gets quarantined because they scanned it and said, oh, it looks like there's some sensitive information there. Does it get destroyed, or what happens next?
So typically that will go to our two people, myself and one other person on our IT staff, so that we can take a look to kind of evaluate whether that actually is the type of information we think is, because these tools can only be so intelligent.
Right.
And we'll typically, before we even review that, we'll get the call from the staff member who says, this is not what it was, or we'll be calling the staff member to say this is what it might be. So, but we definitely take a good hard look at that and make sure that we contain it.
Yeah, so it starts with the computer running an algorithm to say this might be a problem. And then it only goes through if a human, you or one other staff member here in the district says, yeah, this one can go through. Otherwise, it no longer moves.
And it looks at everything. It looks at not necessarily, our SAU staff is highly trained,
Mm-hmm.
so they know what to do when it comes to those things. But sometimes our staff members, if you're not in the business of dealing with that information on a daily basis, you may send something out that you think someone else may need, and it will stop that
Yeah.
right out of the wall. So
So we have a lot of employees, and we have way more students than employees.
correct.
So we have a ton of information about students, not only their own work that they produce, but also emergency contact information, and if the family needs to share medical or health information. We just have so much.
Right.
So what do we do to make sure that that doesn't become the Wild West? Because I know that there are people who would love to get their hands on all of that data.
Right. So we do. We send out. I want to start with FERPA.
Okay.
And just talk a little bit about FERPA, because we do have. We notify parents yearly of their rights through FERPA, which is the Federal
Education Records Privacy Act.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So we do that once a year because families have their own rights that are present in FERPA. Another piece of FERPA that's important
That's
for us.
why they are asked every year, are you willing to let your child's photograph be in certain publications, and are you willing to allow your directory information?
Directory information
be
is
shared.
presented there so that they understand which basic information we can or will share with other entities, and then they have the right to say if that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the other piece about FERPA, with all of these other applications that we do use for education in the district, is it talks about a school official. And who can be a school official, and who has the rights to have access to that information. So once again, just like with the staff information, we make sure that any vendor, any software provider that we share information with, before we share any information, again, we have a data privacy agreement in place,
DPA.
a DPA, we call it, that is a legal document. And they will comply with the New Hampshire laws to protect that student information. And they will act as a school official because they have interest in the educational nature of that data and helping us do our jobs here.
So I kind of know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So why would a big vendor, our two biggest ones are PowerSchool and Google, listen to little old Pelham saying, sign our little DPA when they have thousands of school districts? How does that work that they listen to us?
So we have found that there's power in numbers. So it is really tough when you're one school district fighting that battle,
Yeah.
trying to get an agreement.
Not going to happen. If it
But-
was just us on our own.
Yeah, from a couple of years ago, from legislation, HB 1612 was the law that passed. A bunch of districts and tech directors got together, and we joined a privacy alliance. It's called the New Hampshire Student Data Privacy Alliance. We work with lawyers and with a company who will vet those vendors. So I may get a request in district from a teacher or a principal or our HR director of a new product they want to use. And then I'm allowed to submit that to the Privacy Alliance. They vet that, they talk to the vendor, they make sure that they meet all of our requirements for the security of that data. If they don't, they go back to them and they tell them what they don't meet. And if the vendor can, they'll sign that agreement, and we'll be able to move forward confidently with that. But
And if
it's
they
the
don't,
power.
do we say no?
We say no. We've actually retracted things once we were part of the alliance, and we've said no on several occasions, and that can be really hard because teachers want to use really great stuff in the classroom, and there are great products out there that are not secure.
Yes.
So they're really not great products in the end.
Yes.
But
But a
so-
teacher wouldn't necessarily know that, but the system seems to catch it.
Right, right. So we have a collective, I guess, group in New Hampshire that works really hard, and that group broadens out to, there's many other states that are have their own alliances that are part of a larger alliance, so there's power in the numbers.
Power in numbers.
Yeah.
So it's not like little Pelham against Apple.
Right,
It is this whole group network of school districts saying, here's the standard we need to meet.
correct.
So we talked about staff and we talked about students, but a third area that I worry about as superintendent a great deal is taxpayer dollars. So, we have an annual operating budget that is going to be about $35 million next year, a little over that. That is a lot of people's money. And I read in the paper, I get alerts about towns and school districts getting attacked by something called ransomware. Could you talk a little bit about what do we do to try and protect those systems from someone just trying to rob us?
Right. So we do many things to protect.
Oh, and obviously, I don't want you to tell.
No, and I can't tell all this. Yeah,
You can't say it all because this is actual security, so we're not going to give it away.
But I think one of the things that doesn't necessarily take a lot of dollars sometimes is just really good training. So we constantly are pushing out information and train staff on phishing because ransomware is a threat. But
Talk about what the phishing test that you were.
I think it was done about a year ago. Yeah. So there was a phishing, an actual, like a structured campaign that we did that was pushed out to staff. That wasn't. It was pushed out internally, but staff weren't made aware that this was coming from us. They thought it was a real phishing.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
It looked like you were getting an email. I forget what it said, but hey, your W-2 is wrong. Click here or something like that. And you sent it to everybody.
Right.
All right, what
happened? So generally, you'll always have people who will fall for those, and so that's why training is so important. Look at who the email's coming from. There's quick things that people can do to scan. But I will say, this district did particularly well compared to many districts with that. Our people a lot of people spotted it and knew it right off.
It was crazy because all of the tech support people, your phones all lit up. What is this? What should I do with this? Why did I get this? Right? It was like.
Correct. Yep.
Kind of
we
a big
did quite
headache.
well. So districts that don't do as well sometimes will have some specific trainings that follow. We had some things that followed that, but we were really pleased that people are on guard.
So I know you can't tell me all the specifics, but what about? Is there anything you can share about other protections we have? Not on the user end, but on the systems end. Are there things that we do that you can talk about?
So there's one thing we do every 2 years. It's in the budget. Everybody can see that. We do a biannual audit. It's an outside audit. So we bring in a company and they do penetration testing, which is they try to get into our network. And they give us those results. And the other thing they do is they come internally and they scan our network for any particular weaknesses, whether it might be a server that's running an older operating system that needs to be updated. These are just examples, but it will scan all of that internally, and then they produce a report for us that we use to make improvements, because essentially all businesses, all school districts, you have a starting point, and we're trying to make improvements from that starting point. And the budget has been very supportive of the types of improvements we've needed to do in technology.
So that's on a biannual basis. There's a whole set of recommendations that come out. It's one of the things that one of the reasons I sometimes need to have a non-public meeting with the school board to explain to them what some of our vulnerabilities are and how we plan to address them.
Correct.
Because it all falls under emergency planning. So when was the most recent one, and when is the next one?
So we conducted one at the end of last year.
Mhm.
So I think it's this fall we'll be budgeting for the next one,
Yeah.
which a year from then. So we also do our own audits internally. One of the exciting things I don't know if it's exciting, but
Sure it
our
is.
network administrator just attended a week-long network defender class. So 5 intense days of training to ensure that our staff here are prepared and proactive, not necessarily reactive, which we also have to be when necessary, but that we can proactively protect the network.
Ah, that's good. That's good. And so he has a whole skill set that he just added to,
Correct,
in
yes.
order to kind of at least keep up with the bad guys out there.
Right.
Yeah. So let's just as we those were the big cybersecurity questions, but let's step a little bit more broadly. So what I'd like to, I mean, you're the director of all technology in the district, and coming up as an educator, as a classroom teacher, particularly in STEM or STEAM. What are some of the things that you're excited about that are happening now in the school district? Like, what are some of the new things that you're like, ooh, this is interesting and exciting stuff that's happening now? I didn't
Interesting,
even
yeah.
prompt you for this question,
You
so
didn't, so I
you're
have to
cold.
think a little bit about
yeah,
this.
Take
but,
a moment to think. Just a couple things you might want to you're like, oh, this is exciting.
I guess, so, Chromebooks came in years ago in this district, and there's,
Yeah, one of the first places to do it.
right, and there's been a lot of great teaching and instruction that's come out of that with technology. What I'm seeing now is this really great return to, I don't want to call it basics, but like work around at the high school around formative assessments.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that when we're assessing kids before the big test, as we're assessing them along the way, that we're doing it wisely and we're using technology effectively
Yeah.
to understand where kids are.
That's one of my favorite things that I get because I'm on the high school listserv. And so formative assessments is the inside term, but it's really just quick quizzes or do-nows or teachers used to, some still do, exit slips. In
Right.
order to get out of the room, you have to answer 3 questions. And the tools that get shared and tinkered with are amazing. They're compelling, they're fun for kids to do, and teachers have to spend pretty much 0 time analyzing. So you can see who got number 3 wrong, like that.
Right.
Or what were the 4 types of wrong answers that occurred the most for this little fill in the blank.
Right.
It's so nice.
It's actionable stuff so that they can go back and reteach it and make sure every kid is making that progress and
Yeah.
is going to get there. The other thing that is also exciting is we have teachers using interactive boards in the classroom
Yes.
versus projectors now. So we have 3 instructional coaches in the district.
1
and-
per school.
Right, and currently we have some of these new interactive boards at the elementary school, and we're getting more at the middle school.
I think of them as enormous iPads,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can touch them. What's the dimensions on those things?
I think the ones, they're 65, like a 65-inch TV.
Like a 65-inch TV touchscreen that you attach your computer to and has decent speakers so that you can
Yep.
play a video, do handwritten math stuff, show letter formation. Kids can put their stuff
Kids can
up
go up and work in groups.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's high def. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the quality of the sound and the video is, highly improved from some of the projectors we've had, so.
So but we don't have them in every class at the elementary school. When are we going to get them in every class?
At the end, well, actually this fall, we will be, every
This
classroom.
coming fall.
This coming fall, we'll be purchasing the rest of the ones for the elementary school.
Yep,
So
the
they will
town
be done.
supported that in the budget, and we're beginning our way with the construction project at
Right.
Memorial to get there.
I talked to a kindergarten teacher today, and the first thing she said is, I love my Promethean board.
Oh,
It,
that's
like,
good.
So they use it a lot with their students.
That's really good.
So,
Yeah, and so it's easy for a director of technology to get absolutely swamped with all the back end stuff because you have to get it right for it to work. And you all know that if the email goes down for 30 seconds, everyone's going to be complaining. But it's also really nice to keep talking about teaching and learning with you because that's why we're here.
yes.
So I'm going to embarrass you for one last
Okay.
piece, which is this won't come out for a little bit, so everyone will know once it is out. Holly has an opportunity to move to her dream location back in Maine, and so while we've been blessed for many years to have you making technology and everything excellent here, we wish you good luck. What's the name of the district?
RSU number 40, Waldoboro, Union, Washington, Friendship,
Oh, you got to get them all.
and Warren. I think I got them all.
Okay.
Warren, Maine. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just want you to know that the impact you have had here will be it'll be forever. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll miss you.
Well, I'll miss everybody.
And so this is Pelham School District today, and thank you, Holly, and thanks for watching.